Do you have a child who's off to reception in September? Are you worried or just curious about what a homeschool visit actually entails? Do you want to know a little more about what goes on behind the scenes during those first important days of reception? Well, stick around because I'm going to be answering all of those questions and more over the next few weeks. Let's get going. Hello everyone and welcome. I am Mr. M and this is my PTA, that's Parent Teacher Advice. I keep forgetting to say that in these videos. Now, I have been a professional teacher for over 15 years, but most of my career has been spent in Year 6. That's the end of primary school. So I know a lot about the end of primary school and Key Stage 2, and I know quite a bit about secondary school and GCSEs. But early years foundation stage? Not so much. I have spent exactly 1 week in my entire professional career in a reception classroom, and that wasn't at the beginning of the year. I've also never had a 4-year-old before, so sitting on this side of the desk is as new to me as it is to you. So what do we do when we're not sure? We ask for help. I am lucky enough to know an amazing reception teacher called Miss Andrews. She's currently teaching reception at her school as well as coordinating special educational needs and disabilities, and she agreed to answer all of my questions and then some. In fact, she was so full of advice, knowledge and behind the scenes secrets that to put all of her tips into one video would honestly, it would be an hour long. So I'm gonna break it down, and over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I will be sharing all of her advice with you. If you've got anything else you'd like to ask, or if these videos inspire something, just drop a line in the comments and I will be sure to get back to you. Might even give Emily another call and see if she can answer them for me. Anyway, with that preamble out of the way, here's my chat with Miss Emily Andrews. Hi Emily, my first question, I've said on my channel before that homeschool visits are really important and parents really should just grab them with both hands. Is that right? Should I be saying that advice? Is that good advice?
I think it's really interesting to see the discourse online about the topic of home visits. I know that increasingly schools are choosing not to conduct home visits, sometimes inviting the families in, just having the families in the school, or I've heard of settings having some really creative ways around visiting a child in a neutral environment, so like setting up in a local park for the day and then inviting parents at different slots to turn up so you can meet parents on a bit more of a neutral ground. At the setting that I currently work at, we still do home visits, and I think it's still a really important tool. It's something that I really get a lot out of, but we're really keen to make sure that the structure is clear and the focus for that visit is not around judging what a house looks like. We're not there to look at your wallpaper or judge your living room layout. It's really an opportunity for us to get to know the child in a space that is the safest space for them. For a lot of our children, home is the best place that they can get. That's their ultimate safe space. So it really allows children that perhaps might be a bit more shy or not forthcoming with wanting to kind of build the relationship initially. It's a really lovely opportunity for us to be on their territory, in their terms, to get to know them.
And what does a homeschool visit typically look like?
So the way that I would structure this visit, I'd start off introducing myself to the parents but also to the children directly, saying hello, my name is Miss Andrews, I'm from your new school in September. We're really looking forward to having you. We're here today just to get to know you, ask about some things that you like, some things that you want for your new classroom. Then we're going to go and visit some more of your new friends. I try and keep all of the language as child friendly as possible, and I would always encourage parents that if the conversation is starting to head more towards talking about difficult things like that child's needs or any safeguarding concerns, I would always encourage the other adult I'm with to play with the child or for them to be in another room, because as we know, at this age children pick up on everything. They're listening to absolutely everything, so it's really important that they don't feel judged or that the school are hearing negative things about them before they've even started.
So what evidence do you collect?
We basically structure the whole visit around one of our induction forms that the parents fill out. This follows this very similar style to a one-page profile, very widely used by schools and particularly for children with SEND needs, but we tend to expand that, so the questions will be about how do you sleep, what are your friends' names, what toys do you like to play with, whilst also adding in questions where we're giving the parents as many opportunities as possible to be really open and honest with us, particularly in a world where we have so many children with needs that parents' understanding might not be where it should be. The questions are really focused on getting to know the child, but also offering parents as many opportunities to share any piece of information that they feel might be really important for their child's future teacher to know, where attachment needs or adverse childhood experiences come into play, or any SEND needs, or even any concerns that parents have. I think it's always best to be able to voice that, and I've always had a really positive experience with just being a non-judgmental voice that is there to advise parents if they're not sure, to put any worries at ease about any part of the transition process. Essentially, I have a list of questions that I have for every home visit, and it's the same, that's very standard for every home visit I go to. Most of those are focused on the child. The focus is the child being there. It's so important for your child to be present at the home visit. There have been a few times across the years where I've turned up to a house and the parents like, oh, they're still at nursery. Really, if at all possible, it's always best to have the child there. I want them to see a face that will be familiar to them in September, someone that is, oh, I trust you. You've been to my house. I've met you, and I still have conversations now with children that are in year 2, year 3. Do you remember when you came to my house and played with my toys? And I say, yeah, of course I do. I have always got such value out of sharing that experience with families. You get to find out little nuggets of information that help your relationships with parents as well as those children. Obviously, there's a big focus for me at my school, but for many schools, on relational practice. So anything you can do that's going to store coins, if you will, into that relationship piggy bank, it's only going to be positive.
So, okay, what if my kid has like a meltdown in front of you? Is that like totally embarrassing? What happens then?
I'm really keen to stress, we are not there to judge or make any in-the-moment judgments about any needs or potential needs a child might have. We may make observations, and those observations may in the future build up towards a conversations kind of further down the line once a child has been a student for a while, and they're just a part of that bank of information. But in the moment, I'm really, the relationship is the focus. As a SENDCo, what I want to know, the first thing is if all parents have had any contact with outside agencies, speech and language service, occupational therapy, developmental paediatrics team. Have they had any long stays at hospital or any adverse childhood experiences, things like that, in the most sensitive way possible. So I will always ask parents if there's anything they need to share to keep it open. But there are always 2 adults present at the home visit. We never go to home visits alone. So whilst one person is doing the talking, it may be that the other adult is noting down observations, things like that. For me personally, considering my home visits are for children joining nursery at the age of 2 or 3 and joining reception, so at the age of 4 or sometimes 3 because they're summer-born babies. The things that I'm looking at that might flag something in my head, again, not a snap judgment, but just flag something to me, is if they're not responding to me, if they're not responding to their parents using their name, if perhaps they're really against being in the same room as an unfamiliar adult, which again, it doesn't necessarily mean that there is anything to be aware of. It's useful for us to have that as a note, even if that note only leads to, okay, on their first day of school, we just need to be aware that if we expose this child to too much language, they're going to become uncomfortable. So actually what we need to do is take a step back and just let that child come to us and offer as many opportunities for them to generally explore without having adults in their face giving them lots of information. As we know, cognitive load is a vital thing to consider, and it's really important for children to not feel overwhelmed, especially in that first term of school where there's so many relationships being formed and all sorts of social communication skills being built. It's really important that there's nothing negative on that.
Sorry, cognitive load is pretty much on my bingo sheet when I talk about reception readiness. What does the first few days in reception actually entail?
I think this is really individual to the school. I know that some schools have very staggered starts. I've worked in settings where we have different routes that parents are able to choose. So if they feel their child will be able to adapt quite quickly to their new routine and the new setting, the new surroundings, so they have like a shorter transition to full-time 5 days a week, or they can opt if their child may be a bit more wobbly about it, a bit younger. They also have a longer transition where the child will be attending attending for half days for just a bit longer. The school that I work at currently, we offer half days for 3 days, and the first children that join us are the youngest in the year. So we have a morning where it's just for summer-born children. The next day is summer-born children and spring-born children. And then the third day is summer, spring and autumn-born children just for the morning. And then the following week, they all start full-time for the full day, which actually, in my experience, has been the best start for the majority of children. As a SENDCo, there may be some exceptional cases where I'm meeting with the parents, I'm making phone calls in July or very early on in September to say, after my observations at the Stay, Play and Learn sessions or settling in sessions or their first few days at school, I think they would benefit from a temporary part-time table, but that is all done with the parents on board.
So nurseries and preschools seem to have longer hours. How do schools help parents who have to work?
I massively appreciate that there is such a need for wraparound care, and that's something that schools offer, breakfast club and after school club, and that's something that during the school day, for especially the first month, my only expectations are for children to feel safe. A really short, succinct phrase that I've heard lots of different educators use across the years, that is just safe, happy, then learning. Children need to feel safe in the beginning, and once they feel safe, they need to build that happiness, that enjoyment, that love of learning, then they are ready to learn. Until that child feels safe and feels happy, the learning is not going to take place. So my only focus for that first month at least is to make sure that every child, every person that walks into my classroom feels safe and feels happy. And that means lots of explorative play. That means me getting to have lots of one-on-one conversations or small group conversations about things they like. It means me sharing some things about myself. You know, I talk about my dog all the time, or books, my favourite characters and things like that. That means having lots of those really rich relational conversations with the children. What that also means is when I know that I have children in my class who are attending wraparound club and perhaps having an even longer day, that also might mean, okay, I have that awareness. That means I'm going to give them a little bit more space. If they're struggling to come to the carpet or to follow those instructions, I've got that awareness and I'm thinking, okay, here's the reason behind that behaviour.
That sounds great. But how do you know which children need the extra support?
All behaviour is communication. So what is that behaviour telling me? That perhaps that child is a little bit more tired. Okay, well, I'm going to give them a bit more processing time. I'm going to give them a little bit more space, which is really, really important. As a reception teacher, and I know that this is the same story for so many other teachers up and down the country, your relationship with the children is the foundation of everything that you teach across the year. So if that's strong, everything else is going to be that bit easier. It's not easy by any means, but it's going to be easier if you have a strong relationship with them.
So there we go, that was the lovely Miss Emily Andrews, generous with her time and her advice. In fact, so generous with her time and advice that there's another 2 videos in this series coming up. Honestly, I've got nearly an hour of footage and I'm but a young, humble YouTube channel and the algorithm will punish me for going over 10 minutes. So if you want to see the rest of the interview, please make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a comment because that really helps YouTube push this out to more people, but you can also push this out to more people by sharing it with absolutely anyone that you think would find it useful and or interesting. Thank you very much. I will see you next week with more from Emily. And if there's anything else you'd like me to go over, it doesn't have to be reception stuff, by the way. Like I said, I'm good all the way through to the end of GCSE. So just drop me a comment, tell me what you want me to look at, and I will look into it. Until then, remember, you can do this. You're awesome.